Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the Noon News from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us here on the Statewide Noon News. I'm Samantha Sullivan. 2 avalanches forced the closure of the westbound lanes of Interstate 90 near St. Regis. The report came in just after 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, closing all traffic going west. There were no reports of any injuries. Before that, at 2:30, a snowslide shut down westbound lanes at the Idaho-Montana state line. The road is still closed as of this afternoon. And now we're going to turn things over to Ed in the Weather Center. Ed, thankfully no one was injured in these, but it's not always that way. Avalanches are very dangerous.
That's for sure. And of course, we're talking about those happening out on the highways, but so often they happen when we're out in the backcountry. So just some tips to keep in mind in case you find yourself in one of those situations. Usually what will happen is maybe you're out back in the backcountry skiing or snowboarding. So move sideways and move upwards if you can against it when you first feel it move under your feet. That's one of those things that you have to move and react quickly to. Make sure if you're in any situation where you're going to have a problem with that to use an avalanche beacon, take one with you. And if you can, for a smaller avalanche, try to grab onto something. It'll help you from being pulled down. But if you find yourself in the worst part of an avalanche, you can try and swim out ahead of it to keep yourself above, or create an air pocket by putting your hands over your mouth. And that is the best way to be able to keep yourself going until someone can find you. More on the weather coming up.
Thanks, Ed. Well, a massive fire that broke out overnight in Bozeman continues to burn this afternoon. The fire consuming a 4-story apartment complex on Babcock Avenue that was under construction. The call first came in just after midnight. Roads in the area are closed due to the firefighting efforts, and members of the public are asked to stay away from the area as much as possible. Firefighters will be on scene throughout the day. The cause of that fire is still under investigation. In other news this afternoon, a man is arrested for the brutal rape and attempted murder of a Billings woman decades ago. Zachary O'Neill is charged with rape and attempted homicide for the September 5th, 1998 attack. DNA evidence collected from the scene tied him to the crime. This is MTN archive video from the day of the attack as police began their initial investigation. The victim told police at the time she was helping her daughter with her paper route near Broadwater Avenue and 24th Street West when she heard someone running up behind her. A man grabbed her, threatened her with a knife, forced her in between 2 buildings and raped her. He then became angry and slashed at her throat with the knife, leaving wounds on both her neck, hands, and arms. That's when she pretended to be dead and the suspect ran off. Police collected evidence, including what seemed to be a used condom from the scene, but their investigation never produced an arrest. It was March of 2017 when Yellowstone County Sheriff's deputies interviewed O'Neill about an unrelated case that he confessed to the crime. 1 month later, tests confirmed DNA from that used condom found at the scene belonged to O'Neill. O'Neill is set to make his first appearance in court tomorrow. Electric utility deregulation. Montana tried it 20 years ago, leading to widespread economic damage and bankruptcy for the state's leading utility, Montana Power. But now, 22 years later, a Bozeman lawmaker says we should try it again. Democratic Representative Tom Woods said the state has learned from the past and that today's current system makes it hard for sources of alternative power to make it in the market. In his version of the bill, utilities would have to sell or separate power-generating assets and allow Montana consumers to shop for electric power on the open market. Those companies would still take charge of the distribution systems, but power would be supplied by the power plants. Northwestern Energy, which serves more than 370,000 customers across the state and owns several power plants, strongly opposes the measure. The bill's first committee hearing is this Friday. More anti-Semitic flyers are found in Missoula neighborhoods this week, and Missoula police are continuing to investigate. Travis Wells with the Missoula Police Department says detectives are gathering information from citizen reports and working with the University of Montana. In a separate incident, 2 men were arrested for allegedly spray painting swastikas on a building on West Broadway after someone spotted spray paint and profanity on a window of a downtown motel. So now police are investigating if there is a connection between that vandalism and the flyers seen around town. Another step in the process to rebuild the historic Sperry Chalet in Glacier National Park. Contractors began the bidding process last night. The Sperry is one of the last historic chalets in Glacier and burned down during the 2017 wildfire. Phase 1 to stabilize the chalet was completed. Now the park will choose from contractors across the country to finish the job. Architects say the chalet will keep its rustic appeal.
So it's very similar to what was there, so the layout and the rooms, very similar. We had to make some upgrades for like the stairs to be code compliant, so there will be some minor modifications, but I think for the first time visitor they may not notice those.
The stonework on the outside of the building did not burn in the fire and will remain the same. Well, coming up here on the noon news, as law enforcement tries to catch up, criminal drug smugglers are adapting, finding new ways to bring drugs into our communities. Part 2 of our Drug Superhighway series is up next. But first, Ed will join us with a look towards the weekend in his statewide forecast. We'll be right back.
You're watching MTN News with Samantha Sullivan. Storm Tracker weather with Ed McIntosh, and farm and ranch news from the Northern Ag Network. This is the noon news on Q2, Montana's news leader.